We're being joined by Mr. Donahue Peebles, who is an extraordinary developer. He's also an almost mayor of the city of New York. And we'd like to welcome him to the Black Meetings and Tourism interview room. Welcome.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Good to have you.
Good to be here.
We're gonna get right to it. I think your history is out there in the public domain for a lot of people to read. You literally began as a young man, 26 years old, as the manager of the DC property, put there by Mayor Marion Barry. Would you care to start there, and then we'll go just a little forward on how you came to be a developer?
Yeah, I mean, I was born in Washington, D.C., born in 1960, and so up until 1974, D.C. didn't get to elect its own city government or its mayor. And in 1974, Congress gave the city home rule, so they got a chance to elect its local government. And so I got engaged politically. My mother got me involved in politics early. I was, just volunteering, doing some, just kind of basic stuff to help out and, help put together tables or, hang out flyers or pass out flyers. And so I got inducted into the political process back in '74, and I met Marion Barry, who was running for the city council. He won and then ran for re-election 2 years later. And then 2 years after that, in 1978, ran for mayor and was elected mayor of Washington, D.C. I turned 18, went off to college at Rutgers University. And after my first year at Rutgers, I planned to be a doctor, so I was going to a pre-med program.
Yes.
And after my first year, I changed my mind, and I decided to look at real estate as a career. I spent my last 2 years of high school working as a page on Capitol Hill for John Conyers and Gus Hawkins and Charlie Rangel and Ron Dellums, and I used to, my classes were at the top floor of the Library of Congress. So I went to school from 6 in the morning until 10:30, and then from 11 until 7 or 8, I worked in the floor of the House of Representatives, and then in the member's office, and then ultimately, and I played sports and other things. I had a very busy schedule, so I learned some good time management.
Right, excellent. And when did you decide to transition and become a developer?
I mean, so my mother was a real estate broker and an appraiser, so that's how I started in the business as a sales agent and an appraiser. And then by the time I was about 26, I started my first development project. Now, 2 years before that, I'd begun to work on trying to find the right deal. And it turned out that I ultimately found a deal, acquired a site, and the city of Washington, D.C. agreed to lease pre-lease office space in the building, which enabled me to go out and get the project financed. I brought in a group of partners who were more experienced than I was,
Yes, sir.
so that we could seamlessly execute. And we built that building. I own it today, and my son is overseeing the renovation of it. The city's been in there. I delivered it in 1989, so the city's been in there 30 years, and they just renewed for another 16.
Excellent. And so no need to rehash that speech that was magnificent at the 2019 Now Hood Conference, where you discussed the notion that people of color are paying into, their funds are paying into, but hotel developers are unable to access those funds through the pensions. Could you speak to that, please?
Sure. I mean, at the end of the day, if you ask a black business person what's their number one challenge in running or growing their business or starting a business,
Yes.
they will tell you it's money. It's access to money, access to capital. And so that's the number one challenge. The irony is in the development business, which hotels are a real estate development project. Most of the time, the real estate developer develops a hotel, hires Hilton, Marriott, or someone else to come and run it for them, and then they're off to building the next hotel. And so these large-scale real estate projects, that are in the hundreds of millions of dollars, are financed with bank loans, like someone buys their mortgage and they get a 70% loan.
Yes.
And then the 30% equity on development deals comes from businesses, private equity funds that are focused in providing equity for large-scale real estate deals.
Yes.
Those private equity funds are generally owned by Wall Street firms, and those firms actually manage money for pension funds, like government employee pension funds, construction workers, service employee workers, workers in this hotel, and those workers tend to be more reflective of the population.
Yes.
And they are actually higher percentages of minorities and women. And yet those Wall Street firms don't see fit to deploy any of that capital to minority and women-owned businesses. And that's the injustice here.
Right. So we have the population of African Americans is in the tune of 30 million people. 25% of African Americans work for a government at some level. They're paying into government pension funds. Those are being managed. There are private pension funds being managed, and those funds work their way through Wall Street back into investments as equity into businesses, and yet the African American payments in, along with everyone else's,
Right.
are not reaching African American people of color.
Right, yes, exactly. So in fact, play it out further, those dollars, their own money, is being used to gentrify their communities and drive up the cost of housing. Because again, those big projects, or those big developments are financed with private equity. And so here you have their hard-earned money that's going to be there for their retirement being managed primarily by white male-run and owned businesses.
Yes.
And deployed that capital to their friends and peers who are white men disproportionately. And those dollars in real estate are often used to redevelop communities that make them less affordable for the very people whose money it is.
Interesting.
So our people's money many times is being used against them.
Yes. You're walking us through the forest. There's some light on the other side because you said in your speech that there is the opportunity for the community, once informed, to apply pressure, politically influence, in order to have those who have the policy powers to kind of rewrite this shit. Could you speak to that?
Yeah. I mean, look, knowledge is power. And so the reality is that most people, even the pension fund contributors, don't know how their pensions are being invested and how they get their retirement benefits. They just know that it's taken out of their check. They're busy working, struggling, trying to make ends meet and support themselves and their family. And so they don't know that that money is being managed by boards that they help elect by putting these union boards there, and their boards comprised of politicians. And most major cities and states have elected controllers or treasurers, and they make those investment decisions. So nobody knows, when people vote for a controller or a treasurer, they rarely know what that job is. They're just voting party line. So what we have to do is educate voters to say, okay, these are the offices, and this is what they do. So let them explain to us when they're asking for our vote how they're going to deploy their money and invest the money fairly.
Yes. So we're in an election cycle. The presidential, the Senate, the House of Representatives, the state governors, races, comptrollers, etc. are in play. You have population being kind of, ginned up to tune in on the presidential level, but the strategy of implementation to get the organized people informed to put the pressure on the elected officials with those 10,000 black elected officials and the other elected officials. Is there muscle behind this effort? Are there kind of organizing stratagems or resources in place in order to bring that to fruition?
Well, it's in the embryonic stages because I'm the one who's kind of shaking the trees right now and ringing the bell.
Yes.
I mean, there's a lot of attention played to the national election. And a big part of the attention being played is the president's persona, his way of conducting himself, and his offensive behavior. And then you have on the left side a smaller group of people within the Democratic caucus who want to take us to socialism. Now, of course, socialism is not good for black people because we need to be upwardly mobile so we can create wealth in our community.
Yes.
So, but those are distractions. I mean, it'd be nice to have a president again like Barack Obama who will make us proud of our country and make us proud of their conduct. But more important to black Americans is who is the governor, who's the mayor, who's the controller, who are the city council members. They're going to have the most immediate impact on their lives and their futures. I mean, they're the ones who are going to have the impact on their kids' education because they're running the school system. They're the ones who are going to have the impact on criminal justice and how people are treated because they're the ones running the police departments. They're the ones running the prison system. It's not Donald Trump or the 435 members of the House of Representatives or 100 U.S. senators. They may talk about it, but their conversation is about almost as relevant as the conversation you and I are having. They are not going to get involved in criminal justice reform, except the president can use his pardoning powers, which he is doing, and Obama did too, to pardon people who were unfairly incarcerated. But overall, it's the grassroots that matter. And that's what we got to get our people focused on, the grassroots, things that are going to affect their lives every day.
Yes.
I mean, Donald Trump can be offensive. But if he's not digging into my pocketbook or impeding my ability to make money, then I need to be focusing on the people who are impeding my ability to make money or provide a better education for my kids. Donald Trump is not affecting how we educate our kids. These local politicians are. And they need to be held accountable. But everybody's getting a pass right now because of the theatrics going on in D.C.
Yes. So you have people like the Koch brothers that actually say we want the state legislators to change, and they write resources in order to get it done on the ground.
Mm-hmm.
That commitment is there as well? So
Yeah, and I've always been engaged politically, financially, and continue to do that. I gave Andrew Gillum $100,000 when he was running for governor of Florida, because I thought having a black governor of Florida would change things here, and unfortunately he came close but didn't win. I think we all have to be engaged in doing what we can in politics. For those of us who can support organizations or candidates, give money to that. But everybody ought to be engaged in terms of voting, because we all get to vote. And we got to hold people accountable. We need to understand where they stand when it comes to educating our children, keeping our communities safe, and providing economic opportunities so that we can afford to stay in our communities and build up our own communities.
I just want to pivot with two closing questions.
Sure.
And we can conclude. So in the hospitality tourism industry, could you speak to the role of a magazine like Means in Tourism and why it seems, or in this current market, why it's important to support such a resource?
Well, the beauty of the hotel industry has been low barriers to entry, just like I talked about the real estate development business, low educational barriers to entry. Hospitality, you can start off as a bell person at the front door and work your way up to being the general manager and running the hotel. That sense of upward mobility is what attracts so many people to this industry. Now, if you happen to be African American, historically, your growth within that industry has been, sealed. There's been a glass ceiling on it because there are so few blacks who went into upper management. That's beginning to change. What people don't understand is that hotels like the one we're in,
yes,
they're developed by developers by and large. And they are owned by real estate owners and managed by a hotel operator. Marriott's sole goal is to manage or franchise every hotel and own nothing, because the stock market actually penalizes them for owning real estate. So their business model is to not own. So what this magazine can do is educate African Americans about this industry, about how there is opportunity within it, and also encourage us all to use our collective buying power to be supportive of companies that support us and to not support those who don't support us. But information is power, knowledge is power, and we have to educate our communities, and that's one of the things that Black Media and Tourism magazine does, is it educates, and it provides knowledge, and that's power.
Yes. I actually think we'll leave it there.
Great.
Yes, thank you for this wonderful
Thank you.
interview.
Appreciate it.
This has been magnificent.
Thank you. Thank you very
so
much.
much.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yes. Oh my God.
All right.